Happy New Year, everyone. I am in Cumbria, Northern England. I'm just outside of Carlisle, and I've been here for about 5 days or so, and I've spent a couple of days just scouting around the area, doing some research online, trying to find a few places that I can go and take some wildlife photos. The one place that I found that I'm really keen to explore today, it's a lake nearby, but I'm actually more interested in the woodland birds that are there. It turns out that they feed the birds right next to the parking lot. So the idea for today is to use the car as a hide to take some photos of the woodland birds. Let's head on over. So the bird that I'm particularly keen to get where they're feeding these birds is the brambling. And the brambling it kind of looks like a chaffinch. It comes here in the winter, and I don't see it that often in Scotland, maybe once or twice a year. So I'm quite keen to get a few images of them. So come on with me and we'll see what we can get. We're just going to drive over to this place where they're feeding the birds, and they put out feed on these big boulders that are right next to the parking lot. Now this car is actually driving back and forth here, so I'm going to have to tuck up right up against them. Hopefully that'll be fine for actually not being too close. So we'll just have to see how it goes. And it seems to be about 3 boulders, maybe 4, that they tend to go a lot on. So we're just going to try out one of them first, see how we get on, and then move about a bit. And once we get a few shots of them on the boulders, then I'm going to also try and park next to the branches that they hop onto before they get to the boulders, to get a little bit more of a kind of natural setting with the images. So yeah, let's just drive on over there and let's give this a try. Okay, let's swap over. There's not that much bird feed left on the rock. I'm hopeful though, so let's just stay here for a bit, see what we get, and hope for the best. Alright, a little bit of change of plans here. I'm going to go to the store to buy some bird food because it doesn't look like anybody's put anything out in the last couple of days. So it's almost cleaned out. And I can hear the birds about here, so they know of the place. They're used to being fed here, so it shouldn't be too long until I get them back here if I just put something out. I'd rather have them here for a few hours. I want to be, I want to take my time and get loads of shots.
I'm not in trouble for feeding the birds, am I?
Okay, I just got so lucky. I was just about to go to the store to buy some bird food to put out because there hadn't been anything out for a few days and it was almost all cleared. And then this nice lady comes around, and she's actually the one who's been putting out the food here. So she says she comes back here almost on a daily basis to restock the feed. So she just put out bird food, and hopefully we're going to start attracting the birds here again, and I'll be able to take some photos. Alright, so I've been here for about half an hour now and it's been absolutely amazing. It's just teeming with bird life. We get the normal stuff like the grey tit, blue tit, coal tit, a lot of those. Just had a blackbird, had some robins close by, also had a few bramblings so far, and a surprise visit from a nuthatch, which is really cool. I can see right in front of me now actually. So she's put feed out on these big boulders down the way. So there's about 6 of them that they have to choose from, and I got one right next to the car. It's like probably a meter's distance from my lens to the rock, and I'm getting a very nice soft kind of reddish brownish background from the dead leaves on the ground. So it's just a perfect little setup. Of course my pictures are all starting to look a little bit the same because they're all like, I'm shooting at the tip of the rock, so I'm not getting any of the bird food in my images, but they all have that rock element to it. I've actually just driven down to the next boulder, which has some natural branches reaching out in between 2 of the boulders. So right now I've stopped focusing on the rocks and I'm focusing on the branches in between the boulders. Every now and then they tend to land on them before they go to feed, so it's a little bit more difficult and they're not going to come that often, but once I do get it, I think it's going to create a lot better composition. It's going to make a nicer image because it looks more natural. Alright, I've been here for almost 3 hours and it is time to wrap this up. It's been an amazing experience because I'm so close. It's so easy to just drive right up here, put this little camera netting up and just start photographing. And I'm getting some really good compositions in there. A few of the things that I learned when trying this out was that I started out with my beanbag, and that worked fine when I was down, when I was photographing them on the boulders. But as soon as I moved over here and I had loads of different branches to choose between every time I was going to take a photo, it was easier just to remove it and just handhold and just try and track the birds wherever they would land. And I doubled this up. But I found also that it was easier just to have one, because then it was easier to see through it and just hold my camera underneath and kind of move it about as the birds were landing on different branches. And they really didn't seem to mind that much. They didn't seem to get spooked or anything like that when I moved the camera. At least after a while, they seemed to just get used to it. Another thing that I noticed as well was that I don't know, after a few hours of just photographing these birds on these branches, there was definitely a few branches that some species would land on more than others. Like there was one little twig that kind of was standing up right next to that boulder, and the grey tit always seemed to land on that before they went to feed. And in front of that there was another branch that was taken up, and coal tits seemed to land on that. So the more you kind of observe these birds and their feeding behavior, the more you kind of realized where you could photograph, where you could get a good image of a certain species. So after I got my eye in for a bit, I would really just ignore certain branches because I knew that if a bird landed on it, or when I saw a bird land on a branch, I knew that it was just too cluttered. I would see that a branch would move across it, there'd be too much in the background. So the more I did it, the more my eye kind of got tuned in, and I think I took better images towards the end than at the beginning. And there was definitely a few branches that were just very well suited for it. Like shooting this close means that very often I'm just getting the eye sharp and maybe a tiny little bit of the head, and the rest is just blurred out. And I really like it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit subscribe. I really appreciate everybody tuning in to watch these episodes. I got quite a few new subscribers lately, so thank you guys very much for that. And I will catch you in the next episode. Bye for now.